We really need to get music. I want to get like some type of music. I don't know.
Definitely need an intro.
Exactly.
Just sing.
I kind of like the cold open. The cold open's nice.
All right, we got it's Wednesday. It's 2 days until the start of the Rogue Invitational 2024. Going to be in Europe for the first time, and we got a little bit of an international combination of, I don't even know what to call us, experts, analysts, personalities.
Definitely not an expert.
Opinion.
Don't sell yourself short yet, Craig. We'll see how you do. But I just wanted to start by saying thanks to HDR CBD. If you guys haven't been with us throughout the year, if you're just finding out, they've been with us this entire year, supporting all the podcasts, all the stuff that we do virtually for you guys, and also to Strike Movement, who kind of joined on as a podcast supporter after the games, and also has been supporting some of our major competition coverage. They were with us out in SoCal for the Tier Cup, and they'll be our partner throughout all of our stuff with Rogue this year. So, check those guys out. They're both great companies that have helped us do a lot of stuff this season. If you missed it, on Monday, we had the women's preview show. They had announced the workouts that day. So we went through a bunch of the workouts with Alexis Dutoit and Carolyn Prevost. Carolyn tested a lot of the workouts. We didn't prod her for any information that she wasn't going to be, unable to share, but she did have some insights based on having some familiarity with some of those movements or apparatuses or combinations of movements, and both pretty knowledgeable in general as former competitors and pretty plugged in with the CrossFit community. We don't have any former semifinal or games athletes on this show, but we do have two gentlemen from two different parts of the world. You're probably familiar with Jason CF Media, Jason Croakson from the UK, which apparently, according to some of the Rogue competitors, consists of some pretty interesting places in the world. Jason, have you seen that yet?
Yeah, well, when everything is always silent when you first start scrolling on it on Instagram, right? So sometimes you see the comments before you actually hear what people are talking about. And I just immediately saw the comments of, maybe some geography lessons are needed in the States. So, and then of course I had to add sound, but hey, it's fine. It's fine.
We do have a 3-time regional spectator. You can pull it up, Patrick. What's up, Rodri? I was just at dinner with him. He's the one who actually told me about that bit from Danielle and Ariel.
Great.
Jason, you invite a lot of guests on your shows, but I don't really see you that often on other shows.
I know. Somebody once left a comment on one of my YouTube videos, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you go on other people's shows? Like, don't you want to be on that?" I was like, "I just don't get invited. It's not that I don't want to be on people's shows." So, Brian, you sent me an invite, and immediately I said yes.
I'll take credit for that. I'll take credit for that one.
Well, thank you, PC.
It's usually like me and Brian when we try to come up with guests. Brian usually has like a really good idea, but it's not like unattainable.
Yeah.
So I'll be, what about this person? And then we really couldn't think of anyone. I mean, we had some people in mind, but we wanted to kind of think outside the box. And with it being Europe, I was like,
outside the box, bottom of the barrel, whichever way you want to put it. I don't know how.
PC, you're not selling it well.
Yeah, this is going great.
He's here. But Brian will take credit for our Aussie here.
I'm gonna have to stake a claim for Craig, no matter how good or bad he ends up doing tonight. He's been. I mean, I'll let you say a little about yourself, Craig. But from what I can tell, you've been pretty plugged into the competitive CrossFit space, in addition to being, I think, contributing in the health and fitness space in your own community in Australia for several years. And you've made some comments to me over the years that kind of have caught my attention. And, just like several other people in the past, I was kind of like, you know what? I think something's telling me to give this guy a chance. And here you are.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. Well, first of all, I'm a Kiwi, not an Australian. I do live in Australia, but like being,
there we go.
You've got to correct that. So yeah, Kiwi, been in Australia for close to 20 years now. So, but yeah, I do not consider myself an expert. I do not consider myself an analyst. I'm more of a couch fan that likes to pay attention and likes to be involved in the community. And I went to my first games this year, and it was absolutely incredible. And I'm just someone who I feel like I just pay attention. Like that's all it is. It's not that I have any expert opinions or expert advice. I feel like I just watch and pay attention and listen. And I find that, having your own business and being around people like that, is if you listen and pay attention, you can generally get yourself a long way. So we'll see how we go.
Jason, I'm trying to see what shirt you're wearing there.
What shirt am I wearing? Oh, this is UK Champs. Yeah.
Is that from this past summer?
Yeah, 2024. Yeah. Where Taylor Howe competed and came second, I think. So.
Yep. Good.
Yeah. The only
he's got his
club
tee on.
It means I weigh 1,000 pounds, and you're right, I am huge.
And of course, Craig's got the Rogue shirt on. Is that the Tia one?
No, Justin.
I
do have Tia's on. Yeah. It was a toss up between Tia, Jeff, and this.
Well, Justin won out today. We'll see how the rankings are in a minute. And I've got Wings Up from Aberdeen, CrossFit Aberdeen. A lot of the athletes have been stopping in there. Rob Lawson, who's an integral part of the Rogue community, and him and his wife were really, really helpful and friendly for me when I was in Scotland earlier this year. And, I think we all were thinking a little bit when we put the shirts on today. So we're not going to waste too much time. We're going to dive into it because if I'm being pretty straightforward, like this men's field is insanely talented. We talked about it on the women's side that just getting into the field at the Rogue Invitational any year is a tremendous achievement. I think that top to bottom, this is the most credentialed group of 20 men that's ever competed at the Rogue Invitational. I thought that going into the CrossFit Games this year that we had potentially the most deep field at the top that we'd ever had. Obviously, we didn't get to see the full breadth of the field compete throughout the weekend in the way that we were expecting to. And so knowing all of those things, I kind of feel like the expectation, excitement of actually seeing nearly all of the best athletes on the men's side in the world. We're missing Roman from this one, is about as high as it's ever been. And before we get to the actual rankings and start breaking them down, I just wanted to kind of gauge your guys' perspective on if you think I'm overselling that, underselling it, or if you agree.
Who goes first? I'll go first if you want.
Go first.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of bittersweet, isn't it? Because what makes Rogue so exciting this year is because of how bad the games was, basically. So, we were going into what was going to be hopefully an incredible games. Obviously, it was tragic, and it meant that a number of athletes withdrew, so we didn't get to see some of the battle. Like, I really wanted to see Adler defend his title. I felt bad for him last year because he won, and despite winning, it was always like, oh yeah, but if Roman hadn't got injured, did he really win? So I was like, yeah, let's see him do it this year, leave no doubt. And we didn't get to see him compete. So going into Rogue, I'm excited to see, what does peak Jeff Adler look like, kind of thing. And you're right, like across the board, it's just a stacked field. So it's it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've never done picks like this before, and it made making picks very, very difficult because a lot of the time you want to base it on previous performance. And obviously there are a lot of athletes there that didn't finish how they wanted to finish or didn't have the weekend they wanted to have because of circumstance, because of whatever it might have been. So it made making selections for this, you have to go back and look at how they previously performed. For me, I didn't even look at events. It was just purely based off where I thought this athlete would finish in this field, based off what I see on social media, based off how I feel, and we'll see how we go.
Well, I already like your picks because your first three picks match mine. So way to go. Spot on. You got it right.
I did want to offer or allow you guys to clarify if you wanted to. Patrick and I made our picks like 10, 12 days ago. We posted them online. So this was in the midst of not necessarily knowing if James Sprague was going to compete or not when he was battling with pneumonia. And also prior to seeing any of the workouts, you guys have both sent your picks a little bit more recently. Craig, it sounds like you did not consider the workouts at all. Jason, did you factor that in?
No, I think I made my picks sort of early as well. And then I've been very busy preparing to actually go to Rogue, so I haven't had a lot of time to sit down and go back through them. I think the only change I did make is with regards to Sprague, because I had him, I had pneumonia at the start of the year, and so I was like, oh, if he's anything like me, then no chance. And then I'm looking at his Instagram, and obviously he is nothing like me. That's how he can manage to win the games. And so he
don't sell yourself short.
He got bumped straight back up, but maybe not as high as I would put, what I would consider to be optimum health James Sprague, but much higher than I would have had him like on Monday.
Ouch, Patrick.
Yeah, I was the same
here.
I was the same.
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, right. I was just going to say I dropped James down as well based off illness and sickness. I just myself had the flu last week and a very, very sore throat, and obviously I'm clearly not an elite athlete, but I do know how long it can take to bounce back from sickness, and it affects training, it affects recovery, it affects everything. You could be completely wrong and you could be completely fine. I just feel like in this field, with how deep it is, you can't afford to be slightly off your game, because it will show. If you're not 100% prepared, you can finish 15th in an event like that,
or in the competition overall. And I would say, to you guys who were sick earlier in the year, you probably didn't recover very well because you didn't put onion in your socks and you didn't sleep in hyperbaric chambers.
Yeah, true. That is true. That is 100% true. So,
Patrick's scrolling through an article that we just published within the last, 45 minutes or so on B.Friendly Fitness. If you are curious about really, I would say succinct, less than a paragraph explanations about why either he or I has assessed an athlete a certain way, this is I think it's pretty cool way to just get a really touch point on all 20 of the guys that are competing there. And I never want to sell short the pictures that Patrick selected here. He's been cataloging pictures of these athletes for years and years, and he picks them with a lot of purpose and care. So, head on over to the website and check that out if you want. It can also help you as we talk about some of the picks today, kind of keep up to date, learn a little bit about some of the athletes heading into the weekend, because it's really a field where I don't know, Jason or Craig, if you guys saw, I put out my top 5 picks for all of the known events in each field, and someone was like, oh, no Jonakoski in the top 5 for any of these picks. It's bullshit. And I was like, yeah, I think I picked James Sprague in the top 5 of one of them. And Vellner might show up in 2. It's just really, really difficult. And you can actually finish 5th in the competition and only have one top 5 finish for the whole event if you're pretty consistent. So, all right, let's pull up the graphic there, Patrick, and let's start with you and Craig. You, like you said, you guys have the same picks there, and both of you have Dallin Pepper winning this thing. I'm going to just let Craig start and Patrick piggyback off the back of it. Everyone knows that Dallin Pepper is an incredible young athlete in the sport, but to win the Rogue Invitational is a pretty special thing. Only 2 women have done it. Only 3 men have done it. What makes you think that Pepper has what it takes to add his name to that list?
Hey, he's a man on the rise. He's just constantly improving his performance. Every single competition, he's getting better. He's showing more. And for me, I just think now is the time where he steps up. He's hungry. He wants it. I just think now's the time he steps up and he shows the world I'm here. Obviously the games is a little bit hard to, take fully into account based off everything that happened. But for me, Dallin Pepper is the man.
I'll let Patrick add to that, and then I'm gonna have to ask you a couple of questions, Craig.
Well, there's no Brian, that it seems like every time we see Dallin, I leave more and more impressed, not just as an athlete, but his maturity level. And we forget he's only 22 years old, and the holes in his fitness aren't there anymore. It seems like every time his strengths are shrinking every day. And I mentioned this in the article because you obviously gave me that responsibility, writing why I picked him first. I picked him first before I even knew the workouts, and now that I see the workouts, and I'll ask any of you, it's like, do you see a single workout where he finishes like 15th or worse? And I look at the workouts, I'm like, no. I mean, machine work, he's one of the best. Pure strength, he's top 5, and that includes like Olympic lifting. Odd objects, he's probably one of the best people that adapts to odd objects. And then what was used to be his biggest hole, monostructural workouts, he's gotten so much better out, and he loves that. He's a better runner. So last year he placed 8th in Rogue, and that was his first appearance. That Sunday he had a first, a third, and I believe a 4th. So he placed top 5 in the final 3 workouts, and that was after 2 days of just getting beat up at Rogue. So I think as the competition progresses, Dallin gets better. And I think that's why I work out like Rogue and his skill set. Yeah, I think he's due to win, and this is where it starts.
Jason,
I wanted to hear your questions. You said you had 2 questions.
No, don't worry, they're coming. But
all right,
you obviously are a big believer in Pepper as well, and not to say that I'm not. I have him finishing 3rd. Yeah. What I want to ask you is, to me, there's a big difference between winning and finishing 2nd at a competition. And so I kind of, view you, even though it's only 1 spot on the leaderboard difference, there's a big gap to me between 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. Like as you go up, the margins become smaller. And it's hard to disagree with anything that they said, but is there something in particular for you about Pepper that you feel like he's just not ready to win yet, but even though he can do great?
No, I don't think it's Pepper that's my problem. I think it's Adler that is bumping him down that spot. I think if I took Jeff off the field, then I potentially would put Dallin first. I mean, I would. That's what my table says. But I just think Adler, having not been to not really had a showing at the games, and like the rise he's had in general up to winning the games, I just, that for me, I agree with everything they said about Dallin Pepper, and that's why he's 2nd on my list. But I think maybe if we'd seen Adler through the games, I'd have another data point to be like, well, actually, maybe that previous year it wasn't as impressive a finish as it could have been. I don't know, but I just think that that Adler still takes it at this point for me. But agree with the fact that Dallin is clearly on the rise. He's doing amazing. He will be good at these events. I just don't know if he'll be as good as Jeff.
That's where I put Pepper over Adler for that reason, that Adler didn't compete at the games, and I feel you can't put a price on competition experience and just being in the moment and being there. Is Adler going to come out? You can't deny his pedigree. He's an amazing athlete. But is he going to be competition ready? You only got 6 events. You can't afford a slow start. You can't afford to have a really poor finish at the start because you haven't competed. And is that going to negatively affect Jeff? That was my thinking on, again, he's a top athlete. He's going to be in the top 2 or 3 based on previous experience and based on who he is and based on the workouts. I just feel like him not having competed.
The interesting thing about the Rogue Invitational on the men's side is, if we look back to last year, Vellner actually started and ended the competition with his worst events. He was 13th on event 1. He finished with a 9th and a 10th. Those were his 3 worst finishes, and he still won the competition. The thing that you mentioned earlier about you can have a bad finish and be 15th just like that, there is no field and no competition in the world where that is more true. And when you have an athlete who has the potential to have several top 3 finishes and also is sort of immune to that below 10th place finish, the only finish that Adler had outside of the last top 10 last year was on the elimination workout, which we talked about on the women's show. It's sometimes there's a little bit of randomness in those elimination workouts because the margins are really, really small. And there's 1 minute and change style events. So I'm obviously with Jason on this one. I personally think Adler's the fittest man on earth. When we look at the last data point that we have from him, it was at the semifinals. In the week before that, I was on the floor at the Carson venue in the West Coast Classic, And I said to Patrick, after I watched James Sprague finish third there, I said, dude, is Dallin going to win next week? And I said to Matt Torres the same thing. And he said, we'll see. I think he's got a good chance. And you fast forward to that competition where it seemed to be that guys like Sprague, Roman, Dallin really had a good slate of workouts there. And there were actually a couple of specific things about the semifinals that were great testing points for Adler. He even spoke about one of them in particular with a bike, a low amount of calories and a high power output in a bike at the start of a workout that he was able to mitigate and still fend those guys off by 3 or 6 points. I think that when you get a little bit more robust test, 9 events, he's going to have a chance to flex some of his strength in combination with gymnastics that are, I think he has a unique ability to do. He's also, he's going to win that first event, or maybe he'll take second to Ricky, but it's no doubt he's going to get off to a good start. And most likely the final is going to have some kind of a barbell cycling. I mean, it has the last 2 years. We're missing the clean so far. And I just think it's exactly like Jason said. It doesn't matter how good anyone else is. They still have to prove to me that they can beat Jeff this weekend.
You think Adler's going to win that first event over Noah Olson? Noah just warmed up with an Ironman.
Yeah, it's a very short amount of running for him. That's right.
That's a small amount.
There we go, Lynn. The other, if you're looking at the rest of the podium here, obviously Jeff and Dallin are, we all have them there. 3 of us have Vellner here. And Jason, you have chosen Justin Medeiros onto the podium. Justin Medeiros is undefeated in his career at Rogue. And what makes you think that he's going to make the podium but not going to win? We'll start with Jason.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just see Adler there, so that sort of knocked him down. Dallin's on the rise, as we've said, so all those reasons. And then it was, for me, it was sort of a coin flip between Medeiros and Vellner. I just feel like Justin. So here's the problem: is you guys are very stats driven, and I'm too emotional in these decisions, but not to the extent of John Young. So feel free to criticize, and I'll probably go, yeah, you're right. I'm going to back many of my picks, but I just think Justin, he won the games a couple of times, and then it just seems like things aren't working out since then, and I just see him. Like maybe this is it. This is a chance for him to kind of come back swinging, finish on the podium, put all the pieces back together a little bit and go into next year strong. But, Vellner won last year, so he's also very good. But I just think, I've been stalking Justin a little bit on Instagram and things, seeing what he's been doing. To me, he looks ready for Rogue, and I think he'll do well.
I want to pull Patrick, you go, and then.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with you in terms of I think 2 years ago I would have agreed with you, but then last year I don't think it's a matter of Justin not improving. I just think it's everyone getting better. That's how I look at it, and that's how I look at this field. And when I was writing about Justin, I actually almost talked myself into moving Justin into top 3 because of what Justin has been able to accomplish at Rogue alone. I referenced it in the article. He's won more events at Rogue than he's won at the games against a higher quality field. He has 3 event wins in 2 Rogue appearances and only 2 event wins in 5 games appearances or 4 games appearances. With a less stacked field, and at the end of the day, I think Justin, and I like your pick at Justin at 3rd because at the end of the day, Justin never lost his title at Rogue. He just didn't compete last year. So in my mind,
he would have lost it.
we don't know. I mean that's
he would have lost it.
Yeah.
Craig, I want to pull Ricky Garard into the conversation at this point. Obviously, you have him 4th there, and one of the things that was somewhat unfortunate about the games this year is that he rolled his ankle during the Chad event. And I mean, even though he's not in this field, we know now that Roman was competing injured. And as one of you guys had said, like, if one thing isn't going well, if you're not feeling good, if you have a minor injury, like, you can really plummet down this leaderboard. I feel like it's kind of the whole season we haven't gotten to see the best version of Ricky. He has been advertising that he feels as good as he's ever felt. You have him fourth here. I want to give you a chance to talk about why, but I also want to open it up to the field after that of all of you guys, of what is the ceiling for Ricky this weekend. So we'll start with Craig.
If to answer your last one, I think the ceiling's the win. Like, if Ricky executes well, he can definitely win the competition. I mean, as we said right from the start, this field is super stacked. You could have any one of these top 10 guys. You could move them around anywhere in the field, and you could go, oh, well, I'm not really surprised they finished there. Like, I've got Garard ahead of Medeiros and Hopper and Jay, and like either one of those guys could have an amazing weekend and then top the other guy. Like, it's one of these fields which is just so hard to pick. For me, I don't have him winning. I don't have him in the top three. I just have him finishing very consistent overall. That's why I put him in fourth. Again, I did all these picks based off no stats, based off what I thought someone would do. No previous, like, I went through previous history in Rogue, but I didn't look at the events. I didn't look at they're purely emotional picks, and it'll be interesting to see where they all stack up when you come the end of the weekend.
Jason, do you agree that Ricky actually has a chance to win this weekend, or do you think that's a little bit out of the question?
Well, I mean, never say never. I guess everyone has a chance to win. But no, I mean, I've put him fifth, and I could see him on the podium. I don't know if I could see him winning it. Again, thinking of who we've put ahead of him. For me, it was very much the fact that, yeah, like, he'd rolled his ankle at the games. Again, kind of damaged data points, I guess, right? We're seeing these people perform, but we're not seeing them perform to their fullest. What was it? 2 years ago, he injured his shoulder. He's come back after that. Then he's rolled his ankle. So it's sort of, he came back, and I remember, like, his first year back, we were, is he going to win the games? He was, incredible. He's had some setbacks because of injuries and things. Definitely, he's in contention for a podium spot. I would be, I'd be happy for him if he won, but I'd be very surprised if he did win.
PC, you know Ricky well. Justin Kotler well. You and I both have him sixth. I tend to agree with Jason that a win is unlikely, but a podium is possible. What would you say?
I totally agree. I mean, he showed that last year when he finished fifth, and he was less than 90%. Like you said, he was less. He treated Rogue as his games, and then came to Rogue at not 100%. He wasn't even 100% when he came to Dubai last year. He's even told us that. And for him to put a fifth place finish, I think what Ricky has that a lot of these other athletes don't have, minus Fikowski and Vellner, is that he's going against time. Ricky lost 4 years of his career. He lost 4 years of him competing at a highest level. Now, granted, he'll admit it's his fault, but that's why you see Ricky competing in all these competitions. He's got to make up 4 years of making a living, earning, busting his ass. If you ask Ricky, this is what he does. This is the guy you're going to see competing as a Masters athlete because, he wants to make this a career because he, in his words, he doesn't want to be, 50 years old, roofing, putting roofs on houses. So he's got to, that's what's motivating him more than anything else right now, is that he's got 4 years of a career that he threw away to make up. And him being hurt last year put a big damper on that. And so that's why you're seeing him at all these competitions. And that's why someone like Ricky, and I think that's why Kotler loves him, because he's got that dog in him. And that's how he is. There's no other athlete here that grinds and works as hard as Ricky does. And he also makes it look so easy too when he's out there. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Ricky in a podium. Do I think he'll win? I don't think so, because again, it's one of those things where his skill set doesn't necessarily, fall into what you would normally see at Rogue, and he's shown that in the past. But he does have home runs that he will hit, at Rogue, but then I see some middle spot there.
Yeah, it's one of these weird things. I often say about Ricky at Rogue what I say about Vellner at the games. It's like any other competition, you pick him to win, I can understand it. But for some reason, Ricky and Rogue just doesn't mesh to me compared to some of the other guys that are really close with. And that's why I've also kind of accepted, unfortunately, about Vellner. Like, I could see him winning any competition other than the games. And for whatever reason, sometimes those variables just don't match up. This obviously, you guys have talked about Ricky's history with injury and health, and that he's had these ups and downs. And I just want to kind of add in this tidbit about Adler as we also transition to Brent Fikowski. Like, Jeff Adler doesn't compete very often, and it's seemingly over the course of his career, Jason alluded to this, he just is extremely disciplined and calculated, and they never push the envelope to the point, like, he's always healthy and he always comes into these competitions feeling great. And Matt Fraser had a conversation recently in his garage where he didn't ask me anything. And he talked about that it's all of the stuff off the field of play that ends up making the difference once you get to the level to even have your name on this screen. And it feels like there's other athletes in the field that have managed that, whether because they're better at managing it or they're luckier or some combination of both than Ricky. And I would wonder what it would look like if somehow he just had a perfect 12-month trajectory leading into one of these big competitions, or 24 months or 36 months, as seems to be the case with some of these other guys. It definitely matters. And eventually I want to talk about this, Jason, the fact that the Europeans get to compete in Europe at the biggest competition they've ever had. But before we get to some of those guys, I feel like we have to kind of enter Fikowski into this as maybe the last guy that's sort of in this top 5 conversation consistently. 2 of us have him at 5th. You guys have him 7th and 9th. You're already taking a beating in the chat because of it.
Yeah, Lynn is not happy with me.
Jason Sprague above Fikowski and Rogue. So let's start with Craig, because he has him the worst at 9th and kind of try to talk himself out of a paper bag here. And then Jason, you'll follow up.
I just think in this field that you have so much depth ahead of him, and happy to be proven wrong. Been proven wrong most of my life, so that's fine. I just feel that, again, in this field, you have so many guys ahead of him that will maybe not execute better, that will just have better weekends. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and he's going to be so relaxed and so carefree. It's his last competition. He's going to have the time of his life. He's going to go out there and not have a worry in the world or have any stresses, and he's going to finish second, and I'm going to look like a complete idiot. Or I'm going to be right in the way I feel, and he's going to come 8th or 9th. And again, I just think with the guys ahead of him that I've put ahead of him, they're going to have, if equally, if not better weekends than he is. And that's just a matter, just the strength of field, and that's just where he's going to finish. It might not be because he has a bad weekend. It might just be because the other guys are just better than him.
Jason Fikowski?
Yeah, I suppose similar in that, I started at 1 and I worked my way down. And by the time I got to Brent, that's where we happened to be. So it was more putting people ahead of him than anything against him. And as you've said multiple times, and when talking about the women's field, it's a stacked field. Like, they're all really, really good. So, it being top 10 on this list is amazing, like, in general. I just think, I mean, he actually would have been sick on my list. It's only because I kind of have this thing of, I have a little bit of faith in Sprague. I want to see if he is healthy and he's back. Admittedly, it's a really weird CrossFit Games, but still winning that, I feel, has to count for something. I have to, incorporate it into my calculations. And so he managed just to jump him that one place because he won the games. He gets to jump Brent by 1 place. I don't think that's me asking a lot of someone. So it is very much just all the spaces above Brent were taken. So that's where he ended up.
100%.
I think this comment from Melanie is spot on. Like, and he's even said as much. Like, just because I've announced my retirement, don't think that I'm coming there to do anything less than compete at my absolute, best of my ability. Patrick, we put out that post about Brent following his announcement, and you see all these fourth place finishes he's had over the years. He's taken some like heartbreaking tie-break fourth places to Hogeberg at the 2018 games, last year at Rogue to Roman. You've got him fifth there. I have him fifth. It's like a part of me feels like somehow he's going to find a way onto the podium this year.
I mean, if
he
doesn't
see a way past those guys ahead of him.
Yeah, but the thing is, I could definitely see a scenario where it's like a 3-way tie for third place, and he loses the tiebreaker. That's something. This is Fikowski. How fitting would that be? Something like that. Him, he loses his last game on the last event, and then he finishes out of the podium because of a tiebreaker. I don't know. I think the only reason why I put him fifth is because I needed to put someone in fifth and sixth because seventh place was reserved for Hopper no matter what. So that's just how it kind of fell. But I mean, I think they're if you're a fan of CrossFit and you're a fan of these athletes, you want Fikowski to have the weekend of his life. You want to see him on top. I would love for Fikowski his last, to walk, John Elway, that's a football reference for the Kiwis and people from Britain there, the other football. But you want to see kind of like how Matt went out on top. That's what you want to see. Will that happen? Probably not, because this field is so good. Like we keep on saying, we're going to continue on saying that these athletes are so good. They're such competitors that they're not gonna lay down and let Fikowski win. And collect a big payday out of it. Because remember, there's probably about $180,000 on the line here, if not more. I'll have to double check that. It's usually the second highest payday after the game. So
just went up this morning.
Yeah, exactly. And one reason why it's going up is because that people are flying in and they're buying tickets. Where every ticket bought, it goes right into that revenue sharing for the athletes, which I think is amazing. But yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know where it was.
Bitcoin went up last night. That's also why it's gone up.
Oh yeah, Did
something happen last night?
Well,
I kind of skipped over this, but Vellner's competed at every Rogue Invitational, and he's finished first or second 4 times, and I'm the only one on the panel that has him finishing second. What is wrong with you guys?
He's third.
Yeah.
He's third behind Dallin and Jeff.
He's the best. He's got the best resume other than Medeiros, who's undefeated there, of anyone in the field. He's just consistently amazing at this competition. He came over 2 weeks early. There's no chance that he's going to be jet lagged. He's going to be completely acclimated there. He's proven that he can compete despite having his family around. That's not a problem with him. How can you not pick him in the top 2? No, I'm serious, Jason.
Body hair.
I mean,
yeah, Jason.
Yeah, that's all right, Craig. Don't worry, I'll defend myself. I mean, a big part of it, if I'm going to be honest, is I'd seen your picks, and I didn't want to just copy your picks. So that's part of it. Otherwise, this could have been a very boring
Lynn's going to help you out a little bit. No burpees in the competition. He does have an incredible track record with burpees.
No burpees yet.
Yeah,
true.
It's not a licensed event, is it?
I think there's a weird agreement that Rogue has with CrossFit that it's not listed as a CrossFit licensed event, but they're definitely like partners with each other. As far as I know, the CrossFit Games hasn't posted hardly anything on Instagram posts or stories in a while, and they did post the programming for this. So there's some kind of relationship there, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
In past years, it was a CrossFit event. They would have like a seminar booth, stuff like that, and Calf Show, I think the last 2 years was a sponsor as well.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of CrossFit representatives are going to be there doing stuff at the event. I'm just thinking there's a very, very cold body of water right there. So that maybe, you want to use the environments, you're in Scotland, you want to take advantage, and maybe that could be the thing that just, classically drops.
Well, let me throw that out to you guys is we'll take just a brief break from the names on the list. You know, it's been made known that they told the athletes to prepare for outside weather. Based on the events that we've seen so far, the only thing that could be outside that I see is the run in the first event, where maybe they carry the sandbag up and down the field, head out, do a loop, and come back in and do that 10 times. Do you guys think that that's what they're talking about when we're going outside, or do you think that either event 6 or 9 is going to be outdoors somehow?
I don't think event 9 won't be outdoors, but
I think event 6 might. I think event 6 might too. Go ahead, Craig.
I think depending on, like, I'm not too familiar with the location. Jason might be able to help us out. Is it anywhere near a body of water? Is it in the middle of town? Where is the actual venue in terms of landscape and in terms of where around there might you be able to do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I don't know. It's very close to the airport. That's what I know. That's the thing I needed to know. No, it depends. I would be intrigued. So this is, very left field thinking from me, but I would think if you're planning the event in advance and you're planning to hold it in Scotland in November, the weather would be incredibly unpredictable. And I would have thought that some running outside, yeah, because that's not going to be a big issue, even if it is pretty cold and pretty wet and miserable. But I would be surprised. The weather should actually be nice. I did check ahead, but I would be surprised if you would, plan to try and run all these athletes through, Scotland in November. I mean, there've been worse places where they've held events outside, but I wouldn't have done that personally.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously advertised that the stones are going to be featured there, that they've constructed some of those. I think that's going to be for the strongman competition. Anyway, but it's a fun little thing to have. And I am actually like, I don't mind competitions saying something like that and then not having something outside, just like keeping the athletes kind of on their toes a little bit. So if I was betting, I would bet that there's some way to exit that arena and do a little loop run outside, like we saw at the cleans at the 2021 games in those back-to-back events. But outside, other than that, yeah, event 6 is almost definitely the Saturday night, and it's probably going to be some sort of a strongman thing or an elimination, and then the final will obviously be on the main event. If they do a strongman event, yes, Jason.
Okay. I was going to say, unless they do incorporate some kind of Highland Games-esque movement or something that could potentially be outside.
Well, yeah,
but where would it fit into the schedule?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question.
Not going to run at night. For me, I think event 6 is going to include stones, and you're going to have something similar to what they had with the log, where you have a certain amount of athletes all in a line, and you get to go until you get to a certain point where the weight becomes whatever it might be with a stone, and then you have 6 athletes going one at a time. You get a minute to try and get the stone up onto a platform. I mean, you can't go all the way to Scotland and have a history like you have. Like, if you watch Rogue's Instagram, they've been smashing the stones. And I agree that it's a big part of strongman, but so was the log up until a couple of years ago, and they put that in there. There's nothing stopping them doing a stones event. How cool would it be on the Saturday night? You've got a packed arena in Scotland, and you have some of the fittest athletes in the world trying to figure out how to pick up an awkward stone or the big round stones, even trying to figure that out on the fly. And I think that would be an amazing event.
Does anyone know what this is? The caber toss.
So it's like a log that they hold vertically and they throw it.
And you flip it. You flip it forward.
And so it's how far can you hurl a basically tree trunk. So yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the record breaker from last year or 2 years ago, Patrick.
Yeah, this is what I think they'll end up doing is the Denny Stone deadlift for event 6. It's something that can be made, and they've already announced it as, hey, there's if you go to the Rogue website, they said it's Denny stones are there in Aberdeen, and Rogue brought them there, and for part of a fan experience. And as you can see, like I said, I mean, I can see CrossFitters definitely do this. They have different weights and different sizes, but I can see a Denny stone deadlift involved. They already got the kilts today, so why not go full circle with them? As for the whole weather thing.
All right, sorry.
I'm sorry. As for the whole weather thing, Rogue has, they've adapted to weather. I mean, every Rogue Invitational they've had in Texas has been affected by rain or mud or something or some way or somehow. So I know they did ask the athletes, like, hey, bring something for outdoor, so and they weren't very specific on it, but I imagine for something standing around watching other people do an event like this. So that's what I think it'll be. I would love to see the caber toss, but I just think this year, maybe not this year, maybe next year.
Do you think that is enough of a spectacle for Rogue, for a spectator experience, for your average viewer of CrossFit compared to someone who follows strongman?
The stones.
So
I think for me, that would be a boring event to watch. I would much rather watch guys trying to figure out how to pick up a stone and put it on a pedestal when you've,
That's what this is, right? The Atlas stones.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're like the round ones that you.
Normally the strongmen do it for speed, so they'll start lighter, the thing will be lower, and it'll get higher, and the stone will get heavier.
What if because I've said they might have a strongman event, they might have an elimination event. What if it's both? What if there's 3 series of stones and they go in, heats of whatever, and you got to get them up there, and they take the 10 fastest, and then the 4 fastest, and the 2 fastest, and the stones get heavier or something like that.
Yeah. It could be a combination of what you saw at the games a couple of years ago with the sandbag and the deadlift, and like a mixture of different of those kind of. It's a strongman event, but it's also for time event.
Well, I just think with the sandbag, with the log, you can see the fight. Like you can see these athletes fighting to get it up, and it is impressive, and it's quite incredible to see. And I just think with the stones, the ones that we saw, being so low, being so kind of are they locked out? Have they actually lifted it? I can't really tell from where I am. I just don't think that is as exciting a spectacle, and I think they would consider that when programming, and I would hope they would consider that.
This would be these exciting,
stones, this would be very reminiscent of the sandbag event, also with the speed element when they had when they went out on a bag and they had to kind of get them over as quick as possible. So I could see that as an event, absolutely.
PC crushing it on the back end, finding all these things. Yeah, what do you think?
I think one of the things we also have to consider, and I think Rogue has considered this too, is strongman. Scotland is known for strongman competitions, so you're going to have probably more strongman fans in the crowd than you normally would have at a CrossFit event. So, and you're bringing strong women and strong men. So I think what you're going to do is you're going to have, for the first time, because it did not happen at Rogue in Texas, where you had like a huge gathering of strong man and strong women fans, but you will have that, I believe, in Scotland. And why not? I mean, it may be boring for CrossFitters to watch someone deadlift 2 stones, but for a strongman crowd, they love that stuff. So just some things to consider. I don't know the answers. But I will agree. I think it'll be, and that's why Rogue is one of the best when it comes to stuff like this, is that I'm sure they have something planned to honor Scotland and the Highland Games in some form, some capacity. We just don't know yet. And I can't wait to see what it is.
All right, let's get back to the rankings there. And I think that he's already been mentioned a little bit. And the next person that we probably have to bring up is James Sprague. There's the biggest range of any of our picks, I believe, is Sprague, who Jason has at 6th, Patrick has at 17th. I've got him 8th, and Craig's got him 13th. So there's like literally no consistency here. I'm going to start with, let's start with Jason. You made a little bit of a comment there that you're just giving credit for doing it at the games. he obviously takes a hit on the strength events in most people's eyes, but I feel like, you and I have him here in the top 10, that you got a little bit of belief in this guy, that this summer wasn't necessarily such an accident as some people think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's one of the things where we look at the games and we're like, oh, but there was all this stuff going around the games that it doesn't count. There's an asterisk next to his name. It's very much reminiscent of like the online games, right? Where we were sort of like, well, this is where people finished, but did they really? Most of it was online. But I think he had a really good semi-final as well. I think we were talking about him, similar to how we talk about Dallin, just being on the rise. I felt like that was the conversation around James before the games anyway. And, it was a weird games, but it was weird for everyone. So, I mean, he got the win in the end. And honestly, that I think my pick is me being hopeful that maybe he has recovered more than probably he has. But he's definitely putting on a brave face, because he's talking a big game like he's feeling 100% again. So I'm just gonna say, okay, if he's feeling really, really good, this is the best, like, compared to the others where it's sort of like a Ricky, where I'm like, yeah, he could finish here, potentially could finish on the podium, but I'll put him here. I kind of feel, given everything, maybe this is like the best James could do compared to others where I've got, they could be here, maybe they could be a bit higher, maybe they could be a bit lower. I think I'm leaning on, let's be generous. I think he could get this if everything goes right for him.
Well, speaking of the best, there's someone here that thinks you're the best, Sarah Cooper.
Thank you, Sarah. It only took 51 minutes, but somebody finally said it. So that's
she actually just got here. So it only took her about 15 seconds from logging on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah.
The thing that I haven't heard anyone really talk about when it comes to James Sprague is his coach. Matt Torres has been more and more forward in terms of sharing some of his secrets, tips when it comes to coaching in this sport. He has gotten some recognition over the last handful of years, but he's been doing this for a really long time. He's been working with James and Dallin for pretty much their entire career. And those two guys, no matter how you want to slice it, they both podiumed at semifinals. They both podiumed at the games. And he has found a winning recipe with these two guys, where you can say Dallin's a bad runner, and then all of a sudden he's not that bad. And look, we know you don't have to win every event at the games. You just can't be that bad at anything. And I've seen James at the reps aheads that we've done. I watched him live at the semifinal. I watched him live while I was at the games. There's something different about this guy from 12 and 18 months ago. He's gotten, I think that the strength gains that he's made over the last year have been built upon a foundation that they've been working on for 7 years. And I don't think that he's as far off on some of the strength implements as people, want to necessarily say. And if you look at the total caliber of athlete in this field, there are a couple exceptionally strong guys. Then there's a couple guys that he can't beat on a 1-rep max. But there's actually a few people in this heat, like 5 to 10, depending on what it is, that he can still beat in a heavy lifting event. I think he's more in the middle than the bottom on that. And that's why I think that the pneumonia is my biggest concern for him. But in terms of his fitness, I definitely think he's in the conversation for the top 10. Craig, you've got him 13th. I would say that given all of the factors, that's kind of the safe and reasonable pick. What were your thought process there for James?
Yeah, purely the fact that he's just been sick. I think for me, had I not seen that, and had I seen, I could possibly have him as high as 8th on my list. But the fact that he was sick, he has been sick. Again, someone who has been sick, and I know when you get sick, like, you can't train, you can't eat, you can't do all the things that you want to do. And as a pro athlete, that's got to be even more frustrating. And then you add in a field like we've got at Rogue, where you've got everyone who's coming here to win. Like, outside the CrossFit Games, this is the premier CrossFit event. And these guys, I feel, are just going to be better than him on the day because he has been sick and he hasn't had the opportunity to probably maximize what he would like to consider the most out of his training. So I feel like I could have had him as high as as high as 8th. I probably would have put him ahead of Sam Kwant. And after the heat, I'm probably copying on Fikowski. I could probably swap Fikowski and Kwant around too now. I don't like being influenced by other people's picks, which is why I didn't look at anyone else's picks before I did mine. I just went based off purely because I didn't want to be influenced by what you guys did or Jesus.
Craig's never coming back.
What anyone else? Bring the heat. Oh, had heat.
We have some hardcore Fikowski fans that are regular members of the chat here, so you're definitely up against it there. I'm a Fikowski fan too. So. It's hard not to be. I hear you saying that you actually kind of think, given the illness that he has, that the 13th place pick is a credit to his fitness more than anything else.
Absolutely. Once we start getting down to the bottom, I don't want to go there too quickly, but I mean, you can put I feel like you can put anyone from 9th to 15th or 16th. They can finish in any one of those positions. It's a very, it's going to come down to who executes over the weekend, what those last couple of events might be, who's going to adapt to the, I don't know if anyone saw this morning, on the Rogue Instagram, you had Jay Crouch going across the pegboard in a totally different way than anyone else I have seen, including Tia, go across a pegboard. So that sort of event is going to come down. What have you got? 1, 2, 3, 4 pegboard crossings in that workout. I mean, I know Jason only posted a video of him not doing so well, but you could get very stuck on that workout and just end up sitting there and not being able to do it, or you can get behind and not being able to do it. So a lot of the things are going to come down to 100%, Phil. A lot of things are going to come down to who adapts to things over the weekend, including event 6, which may be a strongman event, which maybe people haven't touched before. As we've talked about, Adler kind of struggles with new obstacles. Medeiros does really well with new obstacles and new implements. So there's a lot more variables than just where someone might be fitness-wise.
PC, James posted on his Instagram less than 10 minutes ago a video of him hitting a long drive at the thing. I think he stayed there all day to try to beat Ricky on it, and he doesn't look like he's sick at all. He doesn't look like he's feeling bad at all. Apparently, him and Ricky are going to play golf in Scotland in the rain and the cold tomorrow. I don't think he's worried about his illness. Are you still feeling good about your pick of 17th?
I am, because this is talking from someone. I have a lung and a half. So since 2006, 2007, I pretty much have been living with pneumonia, basically a half a collapsed lung. Pneumonia, the worst enemy for someone recovering from pneumonia is cold air. Because what's going to happen is he's going to have coughing fits. The moment that heart rate goes up and that cold air hits his lungs, he's just going to start coughing. And there's nothing you can do about it. Brian, you see me all the time where I have those coughing fits. That could happen to him. And that cold air and wet air up in Scotland, because you are close to this. Is that the North Sea up there, Jason?
Yeah, I'm not in Scotland, by the way. I want that on the record now. I've been asked, what's it like around Aberdeen? I don't know.
You're on the island. I mean,
Yeah, we're on the same island. That's true.
Yeah, the same island. I mean, people ask me stuff about the States. I'm like, I'm in the Midwest. I have no idea what the Statue of Liberty looks like. But I just don't think, and I think he did, good on him for trying to find the best recovery, doing the chamber, doing all this stuff. I just don't think he can beat. I mean, the guy was literally, it seemed like on his deathbed, and then all of a sudden he's, I just don't think you can recover from it that fast. He may seem fine, being stationary, but like I said, once you get the heart rate jacked up and those lungs are trying to work, those CrossFitters, they pride themselves on using full lung capacity. He's not going to have full lung capacity. It's going to suffer. And for him not working out for however long, that affects you. It's going to affect you. And I know he's a very fit person. What that's going to do, it's just going to knock him from being top 10 to 17. He's still fit. He's just not as fit as he was, prior to getting pneumonia. I think it might be a minute. Hopefully he'll be 100% by the time Reps Ahead 5 kicks off, but shameless plug there. But yeah, that's
I'm not sure playing golf the day before a major competition is the smartest idea if you haven't been feeling the greatest. Maybe leave that till after the comp.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about some other athletes here who are probably doing things that normal people probably want to do. But hey, they're athletes; they know their body's better than everyone else. It is the off season. No matter what, you're walking away $7,000 just for showing up. So, I mean, I don't blame Sprague for coming. I mean, he'd be dumb not to come just because one, you get your flight paid for, and you get guaranteed money for showing up. You're a professional athlete. That's what you should be doing. But yeah, I'm still going to hold firm with that 17th place, no matter what I saw. We'll get to that soon.
Patrick referenced it a while ago. Jason Hopper has competed the Rogue Invitational 3 times. He's finished 7th every time. We have him picked 7-7, 6-8, average place of 7th. Jason, what does Jason Hopper have to do to finish better than 7th at the Rogue Invitational this year?
Hope some of those guys have a terrible events ahead of them. I mean, those guys have beaten him time after time after time.
Look, I mean, we keep hearing about it. He's working with JR. He's got all the toys and gadgets. He's more dialed in than ever. He's improving on his gymnastics. Is there anything he can do to move his way up this leaderboard?
It's tough. I mean, we keep coming back to you look at the guys ahead of him. Like I've got him in 6th. I do genuinely think him moving back to North Carolina and being coached by JR is a definite positive. He looks far more happy. You see what he posts on social media. He's enjoying his life. He's having a great time. I just think in this field, you could maybe swap him with Medeiros. But other than that, it's tough. And where he's going to finish, I'm going to be interested to see where he finishes in that pegboard event. I think that's going to be like one time over or 2 times over is one thing, but to go over that 4 times, I mean, the ski erg's not going to be an issue, but it's going to carry over to the pegboard. He's already shown that many times that he struggles with new implements and struggles with new movements, and he himself has said the same thing. You can practice that movement all you like, but then you go and put it in with GHDs and that many cals on a ski erg, and you could have a horribly bad event and be completely out of contention with one event.
Anything to add, Jason, about your name?
I mean, I think the problem is it's just one of the things where people have always talked about Jason, how well he's going to do at the next event, and it's sort of in the lead up. He's better than ever. He's looking great. He's like on that, and it just never kind of comes to fruition what people think is going to happen. So for me, I'm a little bit like, I need to see it. Once he finally does what everyone's always saying he's capable of doing, then okay, like yes, like so. Maybe this is it. Maybe this will be the year. He'll finish on the podium at Rogue, and then I'll be like, okay, I should just shut my mouth. And obviously he, it is all working for him finally. But I just feel like every time we're coming up and we're like, yeah, from when he first went and was training with Matt and was sort of like, he's Matt's chosen one, he must be the next big thing.
That's even before that, when he won the MAC that first year and he beat Medeiros, beat everyone who was there, Dave Castro said something about him that was reminiscent of something that Dave has only said about 2 or 3 athletes in the history of the sport, which were Pat Vellner, Matt Fraser, and Rich Froning, who I think are the 3 best guys to ever do it. So, he's had this incredibly high level of expectation at a really probably unfair stage in his career. Also, the field of competitors is as good and deep as we've ever seen. So, I asked the question because I think it just illuminates how good you have to be to move up 1 spot on this leaderboard of men. Speaking of that, we have this guy from down under named Jay Crouch. Craig, you've got him highest there. It goes on like almost forgotten from the games this year, but he was doing great again, and he had to withdraw from the last 2 events. He finished 12th despite having zeros on those 2 events. Obviously there's a guy like Hatfield who wins them both and moves up to 10th, but he would have obviously beaten Hatfield, and Hatfield wouldn't have cracked the top 10 if he'd stayed in the competition. But nevertheless, like, I think Jay Crouch is, when healthy, definitely one of the 10 fittest guys on earth, but I kind of view him in this echelon with Hopper, where it's like no matter how good he gets, he just can't crack that top 5.
Jay's still young. People forget that. He's only been doing this for 4 or 5 years. He's not an old guy. He's extremely strong. He's extremely fit. And not only that, now he's associated himself with Tia, who knows how to prepare. She knows how to do everything how you're supposed to do. And I just think it's elevated both him and Maddie on the women's field. They just he looks like he's having a great time. You follow on Instagram, Jay's always happy. He's always having a good time. He's always enjoying himself. But he's a competitor. He hated finishing. I think he came 3rd this year at the Taurian Pro. You could tell he was not happy about that, finishing 2nd to Bailey and finishing 2nd to Ricky. He's got a dog in him. He's like Ricky. He's like, he's coming out here. He wants to show the world that, like you said, at the games, he was, I think, sitting 7th or 8th before going into that last event where he took a couple of zeros. I think Jay's going to show people that he's here.
He basically took a 0 on the 3rd to last event also. I think he was 2nd to last at that point. So, like, you finished 12th with 3 strikeouts at the end. I mean, I hope he's healthy this weekend. I'm waiting for him to basically have a top 5 finish against the best guys in the world. I think it's only a matter of time, like you said.
Yeah.
These guys don't even think he can crack the top 10 here.
I've put Jay high on lists in the past, and he's let me down. So this time, I'm playing it safe.
9th last year, so 9, 10, 11, a very reasonable and respectable expectation for him. Another guy that we have in that equation is Sam Kwant. Patrick, you're highest on Kwant with him at 8th, I believe. You and Craig both have him 8. I have him 10. Adler doesn't like. Jason doesn't like Americans. PC, tell us about Sam Kwant.
It's an even year. You know what that means for Sam Kwant. Dating back to 2020 when he finished 2nd, 2022 he placed 4th, and this past year, 2024, he placed 6th. So even years is when he does well, and that includes Rogue. So he made 2 appearances at Rogue. His best finish was in 2022. He placed 8th, and then placed 13th in 2021. Kwant's just one of those tricky. He's just one of those tricky fit guys. He just not a lot of hoopla. He just shows up and does work. As an HWPO athlete, he'll come in there well prepared. He'll have the whole HWPO team helping him out. Harry will be there. I assume Harry will be there. Harry's still his coach, but the guy's he's a professional. He gets stuff done, and he's one of those guys when you have like classic CrossFit with some type of sprinty, like a double, triplet with some type of fast bar cycling or something with a quick race. He'll do well. He'll finish middle of the pack. He reminds me a lot of like him and Saxon Panchik are almost like interchangeable in that aspect.
Yeah, I just think you don't know what you're going to get from Kwant. You're either going to get, like you said, an excellent performance or a performance that he's not really happy with. That was one of the picks. I found all these picks from Kwant down to Sprague and Sam Cornier. Like they were hardest for me to. Where do you put him? Like, is Noah just there for fun? Is he hanging out? Is BKG going to be injured? Like, it's just I found that those ranking those middle 5 so tough, like so tough.
Jason, I think it's time now that I want to get I asked you about earlier. You have BKG and Koski here, 9, 10. I've got him 13, 14. Craig's got him 16, 17. They're like linked together on most of these lists. Patrick has them spaced out a little bit. They've obviously been around forever, and they've been good for a decade basically each. This is the biggest competition that's ever taken place in Europe. It's the most density of high caliber athletes that we've ever had. The European and international athletes in general have had to figure out how to travel and compete well. Some of them have managed to do that better than others. The North American athletes, for the most part, have not. Not only is this the first time that James Sprague is competing internationally, as an example, it's his first ever trip outside of the continent of North America. Most of not most of these guys, but a few of these American athletes that are amazing, like Hopper and Pepper and Sprague, have rarely, if ever, done this. And the Europeans, like these guys, and even I want to throw Henry Kaplan in there, even though you have him way down there in 19th, like, they have shown to be extremely tough and difficult to beat when on European soil. Do you think that that's going to make a factor? You can talk about men and women in general here, but that the Europeans get to be at home in the biggest competition they've ever hosted. How important is that to them, and how much will it affect their overall performance this weekend?
I do think, man, I heard you mention this as well on Monday's show. But I think about like BKG, and I think if you hear people talk about him when he's at home, he's like the king of Iceland. He's super relaxed. He's like, life is good. It's not just, we think about travel and it's like, oh, it's the hours that they travel and it's the time difference. And then it's that you have to acclimatize to, but like Vellner's gone 2 weeks in advance. So he's acclimatized. Yeah, but it's not the same. You're still abroad. You still don't have all the things that make you comfortable, that make you kind of be you. And I just think, as you said, this is such an opportunity for them. We've talked about the strongman stuff. BKG's got friends that are strongman that are playing with these implements. He's got access to gyms because he knows, he's in his element in the lead up to this. He knows where the people are that he needs to see to get to play, maybe with certain things that might show up in competition. So I just think if I'd put them first and second, you guys would never let me come back on the show. So I didn't do that. I put them at a more reasonable high position, but I thought I initially actually, had Crouch and Smith and Kwant a bit higher. And then I thought, let's give them that home field boost. I think also that, the fact that how many people do they get in the crowd cheering them on that are like from their hometown, from their gyms, people that they actually know. They'll get fans even when they're in America. BKG's got a lot of fans, but it's going to be different, right? When it's people screaming in your language, people that really know you. So I just feel that's got to give them a boost, right? And at the same time, as you said, it's not just that they get, even if it's only a fractional boost, it's also maybe that fractional drop for the athletes that are for the first time having to travel much further than before, deal with the subtle differences of being in a different country, even though the language is the same, things are different, and maybe those two things combined will give them a little boost and get them up into the top 10.
But does not apply to Henrik Kapalainen.
I mean,
the
boost can only do so much.
Jason, that's when you give the default answer. Everyone's good here. Someone has to.
But everyone is good here, yeah.
Exactly. Someone has
even
to
even Caravis is good.
Exactly. So they're all going to be 10 points away from each other. Everyone's going to be 10 points away.
For me, when I did my rankings, I didn't even factor in travel. I didn't even think about that. I just thought it purely based off fitness and where they're going to finish in the competition. And you're right, like being at home is a massive advantage versus having to travel and having to do all those things. You're staying in hotels. You don't have, like you said, the friends and family around. So absolutely, home field advantage is massive. And especially when you've got to travel a long way. Like for us to get to Europe, I say us, Australia and New Zealand, it's 40 hours. Like that's a lot of travel. And it's a long way away.
What?
Yeah.
Well, they got to take like 7 different connecting flights. Just in like
it's wild.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't see a lot of Australians and Kiwis competing in those parts of the world because it's just such a long way to go. Even
I'll give you 24 hours.
It's a little further than that. Trust me, it's further than that.
Yeah. I've talked to Con.
Maybe I'm Phil's private jet.
Yeah. I've talked to Con, and Con even said this. He attributed a lot of what they him and James and Emily, them winning the team, that team is because they came a month in advance, and they got adjusted. They just kind of planted their roots. They got into a rhythm. And it's a little bit different with James and Con because they're so used to traveling to begin with. But it does pay a difference. I mean, like Jason says, Vellner coming here 2 weeks early. There's still modern conveniences, like him getting used to like 220 outlets versus 110 outlets. Making sure hey, you're blowing up your shade razor and stuff like that. I mean, there's just small stuff like that. And I think another thing that might play a factor is the time change too. Not just the time change, but also with daylight savings time as well. Normally.
Don't get me started on daylight savings time.
Yeah, exactly. But you see how it's affected you that way.
Yeah, because I scheduled a million things during the 1 week that everything was different.
Yeah, the fact that you guys change a week later. In fact, somebody's asked me about Sprague as well. James Sprague was meant to come on the show. The fact that he got pneumonia messed it up. But the other thing was that we booked it within that week where the time difference wasn't what I thought it was. So I was like, yeah, absolutely, I can do that time. And then realized it was an hour earlier for me than I initially thought.
Yeah,
so.
I can't even believe how many important things I scheduled during that week, only to find out that it was a temporary whatever.
I even know for myself who traveled to the games this year, the time difference was wild. It was midday or 8-9 o'clock at night in the US when it was midday in Australia, and that was messing me up. And now we're at the total opposite. Like in Australia versus Europe, it's the middle of the night. So like I've got to get up to watch the Rogue Invitational at 1 a.m. in the morning. Like it's going to affect athletes. It's going to affect.
And he's going to do it. That's why we have him on the show. Is that?
Well, he said, "I've got to." So
yeah, I've got to.
His life depends on it.
I get to.
He's an analyst now. His picks are out there.
If Fikowski finishes 8th or 9th, then we're good.
It's so far away that the toilets flush backward. That's right. And people,
I don't think I'm going to be so excited to watch a CrossFit event to see how my rankings stack up.
That's good.
These are great.
And I think that's what everyone should do. Yeah. So.
Well, I'll just say this. Koski's never finished in the top 10 at Rogue. Obviously, he withdrew last year. He was 11th the year before that. BKG he missed the first year. He's been every year since. He's gotten worse every single year. So he'll be looking to try to have a bounce back season. Another athlete that someone had mentioned something about very, very early on was Chandler Smith. A little bit of very consistent picks here with Smith, actually, all in the range of 10 to 12. PC, you know Chandler well. What makes him so good at Rogue?
I mean, he's the quintessential Rogue athlete. I shared that stat with you, kind of like he's competed more seasons at Rogue. He's had more appearances at Rogue than he's had at the games. This will be his 5th appearance at the games. He's had 4 individual appearances. This will be his 6th appearance at Rogue. He's had 4 individual and throwing the team. So that's 5 total appearances at the games. It's crazy if you think about that. And I
actually wanted to put him higher.
Yeah, so did I. But the thing is, I don't know where he is. I mean, obviously he's freaking fit, and he's strong as hell. But there's a difference between. I mean, that argument could be made for Noah too. Like Noah's fit, but is he CrossFit? But Chandler, during this 5-year span, his average finish is 6, with his worst finish being last year when he placed 13th. But he did win his 4th career event, which ties Vellner and Hopper for first all time. So even when he's struggling, he's still hitting home runs, because there's going to be 1 or 2 events just like Guy, and that's going to be the fun thing, watching him and Guy in the same. That's why I hope there is a deadlift, because I want to see Chandler lift heavy stuff. I think that's what people want to do, and him pointing at his watch, or him, but
neither of them will win an event.
Pardon?
Neither Chandler
or Guy more about wins for Chandler or Guy. Craig says none of them are winning an event. Let's talk about Guy for a second. Just looking at the picks here, Craig, you're pretty high on Guy. Actually, you're 12th.
Again, I think if Sprague's fit, then he bumps Guy down. Noah's been doing Ironman. You never know what you're going to get from Cornwall. So I think for me, Guy's probably 12th or 13th. But with Sprague being sick, it moves Guy up a spot. He's a fit, strong guy. You've got very strong events. I feel like he will. I know a lot of people like rag on Guy, but I think he's a middle of the pack athlete, and depending on how certain events go, like he's going to have some very strong finishes. He's probably going to have some also not so strong finishes. So that's why I have him where I have him at 11.
I actually picked him to win event number 2, the North Sea Tiger. That's a good one. Bike. I don't think that. I mean, yes, you can make up a few seconds on the bike, but the combination of the ring muscle up in that volume and the way he's going to be able to cycle those squat snatches, I just don't see anyone beating him on that workout. I mean, think about the hat trick event. Like, why did he win hat trick? It's because his fast twitch muscle fibers are insane, and the weight looks like a feather to him. He was squat snatching a 100-pound dumbbell like it was nothing, and he rebounds out of the bottom of the wall ball like it's nothing. And I just think that for a CrossFit's question, that Guy's going to get one right out the gate. And even though Chandler's got 4 in his career, it'll take, I think, a pretty specific event on Saturday night for him to get one. I don't see him winning any of the ones that are already announced.
Good call.
Nadine, next guest on the show. Perfect.
Well, there's a whole chat discussion going on there about them wanting to be analysts, and I say go for it. Bring them on.
One and done.
Saxon Panchik, 6th place finish of the game a couple years ago. He's bounced around coach a little bit. He's been kind of quiet, kind of under the radar as he always has been, but he's been there and done it before. Patrick, you've got him inside the top 10. Why are you a believer in Panchik this weekend?
I think he's only 28 years old. I know it seems like he's been around forever. He's kind of like Jay Crouch in that aspect. And Yona, he's been around for a while, or we just think that, just that name Panchik just sticks around forever. I think he's due for a bounce back. He did that this year at the games. He bounced back from what he finished. He finished 11th, so that's a very good finish for him, especially since considering he's coming back from injury, a change in scenery. I don't know. I just feel like he has something to prove. Not that none of these other athletes do, but I figure this is a guy. At one point, he was beating the Chandlers, the Noahs. He was a top 5 athlete. He was becoming his brother, and then he had an injury, and then some other, and then life got in the way too. So I think he's more focused now, and I think just the programming for him should be fine. Especially now, looking at the program, I think he'll be fine.
I wish I'd watched the Mayhem Road to the games before I put him in 11th, because he said he didn't train for 4 to 6 weeks after the games. And he sort of seems like and he got the call up late for Roman, right? So I think he was probably in off-season mode, and now after watching that, and he is a sort of a carefree athlete, and he just kind of does his thing. He doesn't really seem to, he understands. Well, his views are that CrossFit isn't the be all and end all, and there's a life outside of CrossFit. So I may have him too high, I feel, in this after watching that.
Nadine, giving Chandler a shot to win event number 5, rope climbing devil press.
I think if that happens, you have to get her in as an analyst at that point.
Yeah.
What's the legless rope climbs, have they said?
They haven't said. There's a lot of nuances to the workouts that are left to be revealed, which I like.
Like if that's legless, it's totally different workout.
Oh my God.
Getting roasted. Thanks, Lynn. Where's your list, Lynn? Where's your list?
I think it's on the Heat 1 app, is what she said. So down here at the bottom, we have a lot of qualifiers that qualified to this field, and I actually think it's kind of like I said at the start of the show, one of the better lists of qualifiers that we've had overall. And when you look at the qualifiers on the men's side over time, we'll just do a little history lesson here. In 2019, 3 guys from the qualifiers finished in the top 6. In the next year, 2 guys finished in the top 10. The year after that was online. It was kind of, in 2021, there were no qualifiers, excuse me. The next year, Chandler Smith came through the qualifier and finished 2nd. Last year, there were 3 guys who came through the qualifier that finished in the top 7. None of us seem to be believers in the qualifiers this year. If you're wondering who those guys are, the 5 online qualifiers were Hapaline and Cornwall, Guimaraes, Fernandez, and Caravis. Jason, if one of those guys from the qualifier was going to finish in the top 10 this year, who do you think that it would be?
Oh, I'm going to say Caravis because everyone's so mad at us for all putting him last on the list. He'll see the list and then he'll be like, "That's it," and that will light a fire, and he'll just do better than we ever imagined. So I have a real soft spot for Jorge.
I was just about to say, yeah, go ahead. I like that.
And I mean, you know, he's done incredible stuff on a team at the games. He just, you know, I remember speaking to him when he was like the first year that they'd put that team together, and talking about some of the qualifiers that they'd done, and sort of, you know, and he just seemed so like charged up and ready for everything, and like, you know, almost it felt a bit like, I don't want to say he felt the team was holding him back, but almost like, you know, he was already kind of ready to go as an individual, but he was holding it back. I'm yet to see like that appear, if that makes sense. The potential I thought he had, but I do feel like I think if I had to pick one, I don't know why I would go in on Jorge Fernandez. I think he's there's something about him, and he is an athlete. Like, if that makes sense, what I mean, you know, he's just an athlete, and I think
for me, he's just never going to finish higher than where he finishes all the time at the moment. I just don't see him improving that much. Just
well, you don't
from
have
everything that I watch and everything that I see. He looked amazing guy. Looks like he's very, very fit. Just not sure that he has the pedigree to be able to be any better than what he is.
I'm gonna argue against you guys, and also against my own pick, since I picked Jorge as 19th. I do agree with a lot of what Jason said. However, doing some research on him, you know, one of the first, I mean, he did a couple individual comps. I think he did individual tier in 2022 in the winter or January. But then he qualified for Wodapalooza in 2022. He finished 13th. And he finished ahead of people like Hapaline and like Koski. Well, no, Koski finished ahead of him. Who else is on there? Panchik. You know, he finished against some guys that we are picking ahead of him. And he actually went toe-to-toe with Justin Medeiros in that dual 2 event. You know, it went down to half a second. He lost to Justin by half a second. And he actually finished that weekend at Wodapalooza with some decent finishes. Now, do I think he's going to repeat that? Probably not. But I will say the field is a little bit more is pretty comparable to that one he had in 2021, and he finished in 13th place. Now, if you look at where he finished and the discrepancy between 13th and 12th, it's over like 120 points. So there's a big drop off from 12th to 13th. Jorge definitely has some home runs, and he has the ability to do that. But you know, that was kind of like my argument for him. But then at the end of the day, again, I'm going to use that default excuse. Everyone's just so good.
Yeah. And actually, I would like that every time someone in the comments criticizes where we've put someone and says, oh, they should be higher or whatever, they need to tell us which athlete that's higher they have to remove. Because it's so easy to put everyone at 4th at this point. But it is, yeah. Every time you move someone up, you've got to move someone else down. And that's the challenge.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the struggle I had as well.
Yeah, and that's just with 20 athletes. You know, so imagine doing this for like the whole game.
Nah, I'm good.
Look, Glenn, I need to get James to sign my Sprague card at Rogue.
He'll do that.
I've got to keep him sweet. I can't stick him at the bottom of the list. So that's why he's.
For me, I think anyone in the bottom 5 or 6 has an opportunity if they have a great weekend to finish 10th.
Henrik Happalainen, CJ says, I think Henrik is a little low. Lynn says Henrik and Kwant are almost the same person. Sam just burpee monster. Henrik eats dumbbells for breakfast. Okay. Happalainen is a guy that when I was looking through these lists and when I was writing the article that's up on the website, I was like, everything that I know about this guy, like he should do really well at Rogue. He's a good upper body puller. They got muscle ups in 2 different capacities, rope climbs in 1. His best finish, I think, have been on the strength implement. So he's probably, he's strong enough to have a relevant finish there. He's not a bad runner. He does good in Europe. Like all of the variables are there. But then I started looking at the results, and he's like almost all of his finishes at a Rogue events that he's done in the past are between 14th and 17th. And that's just not going to get the job done. So when I was looking at Happalainen, I said, like, as much as I want to believe it, he's got to prove it to me before I put him any higher than where he's been the last couple seasons.
You know how we do that? We put him in the same lane. Well, put him in the lane next to Koski. Because it seems like those two
race each other.
They always bring the best out of each other. I mean, you watch those open workouts. I've never seen Henrik, like watching Henrik during those workouts, like during the open with him and Koski, that's like a Henrik I've never seen. That was a Henrik unlike that we were expecting to see.
Well, they're gonna be against each other just in the last heat.
Well,
which is the first heat. The last heat, that's the
first heat. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. The first heat.
Very few athletes
down under, we're backwards.
Yeah,
very few athletes we haven't mentioned yet too much. One of them is Sam Cornway. Earlier, someone was saying, "Is he actually going to finish the comp?" And Lynn said, "Yes, we're gonna make him finish the competition." I talked to Sam at the games this year. He was, he was not kind of happy with the way that everything turned out there. I think he's getting close to the end of his competitive career. He made it through the qualifier.
Last competition.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah, he's an. They were talking about that on the Mayhem chat that it's his last comp.
And Rich pretty much told everyone too.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I didn't know that he'd spoken about that. I didn't want to necessarily say that. But if it is his last competition, which it sounds like he has said that it is, Patrick, you and I have spoken about him over the years that the potential just seems like it's right there waiting to be untapped. And somehow, we see it for a workout, but we can't see it for a whole weekend. If you had, so I don't want to ask if we're going to see it for the weekend. I want to throw it out to you guys. Is there, do you see a workout that's been announced this week that Sam Cornway can, take a top 5 finish, maybe a heat win, do something that's kind of memorable in his last competition?
I don't
know ready for that one, are you, Craig?
No, I don't know enough about his skill set. Absolutely not. And I'm fully going to admit that. I do not know enough about his skill set to know what event that he will shine in versus anyone else. And that's my analyst take.
Boom. Write it down.
Patrick?
Yeah, I think we saw it semifinals where he was winning heats against really good athletes. So he definitely has the potential. Like I said, how high I am on him and have been, and it's unfortunate due to, injuries or other factors, whether it just seems like nothing ever plays in his favor. So I do think he might do well in that one, the squat snatch event. I can see him doing well in that one. I'm trying to remember what else was in that. It was a triplet, I believe.
No, it's the Sea Tiger. It's the muscle up, the bike muscle up, squat snatch, and then a little shuttle sprint.
Yeah, I can see him doing. I can see him doing well on that.
But you see, this is the problem. Is I could see him doing well on that, but as Brian's already said, Guy's winning that one. So this is, I think, the issue is that with this field, when you there are some that I reckon he could get second or third. But it seems like when you're looking at all the different events, you're starting to earmark kind of, this will be very good for this person, and this will be very good for this person. And I think even ones where you're going to be like, yeah, this will be very good for him, you've probably got another athlete or two that you're like, but it's actually going to also be really good for them. And I think that's the problem. So I think
I think what you're end up going to happen is like what we saw in semifinals, where you're going to have a heat of all mayhem athletes, and those mayhem athletes, they push each other. So I mean, no, I mean, Brian, it happened at Syndicate.
Yeah, I know.
But you can easily see, like, you're going to see a heat where it's probably going to be Jorge, Saxon, Samuel, Guy. That's 4 mayhem athletes there, and they could be all next to each other, and they're going to race each other. That's like a competition within, and we saw that Syndicate. We saw that that mayhem versus mayhem competition they were having. So Brian may say like he's going to win that event. I'm looking at winning a heat in this option, because they're very rarely will you see a heat winner in that first heat win the event. That's how in Rogue you see that more at the games than you do at Rogue, because it's so top heavy, and everyone's so freaking fit, so you won't see. I mean, that's why I don't think Guy will win that event, because he'll probably be in that first heat, and he's not going to be going against some of the better people, like Justin. I think Justin will do really good in that event, but that's just. But yeah, I just hope Samuel, like I said, he enjoys himself. It looks like he's enjoying himself now. He's pulling pranks on James Sprague. It looks like he's having fun. And I think, having a loose Samuel is a dangerous Samuel. So we'll see.
I'll speak just real quickly for Yorgos Karavis. I know him really well. He's an assassin in online qualifiers. He's a hit or miss guy at live competitions against this caliber of field. He hasn't done very well at the games, and so that's why we have him there towards the bottom. But he's he's the kind of guy that will kind of come out of nowhere, surprise you with something. He's really, really good at like burpees, thrusters, chest bar pull-ups type of stuff. But some of these are not really commonly programmed at Rogue. We don't see any burpees this year. We almost never see chest bar pull-ups there. The thrusters are buried with 2,000 meters of rowing against a field that's pretty big athletes. So I think it's just a tough field for him, but it's just, I mean, the accomplishment just to make it into this competition is important for him. He's going to have a great weekend personally, even if it doesn't show that necessarily on the leaderboard. The kind of last question I want to ask you guys is on the men's side. We've gone through almost the entire list here. Craig, maybe we'll start with you for this one. What do you think the biggest storyline or the thing that you're most excited for, whether it's an athlete, a specific type of battle, whatever you want, however you want to phrase it, this weekend for the men's field at Rogue?
Pepper winning.
Dallin Pepper.
Dallin Pepper winning Rogue.
Yeah.
And then going, I'm here. I've been coming.
It. He's a good dude. I like it.
Yeah. Dallin, I just think he's ready. Like, I mean, you can tell how well he did at the games. I listened to podcasts of him talking after. He's constantly just figuring out ways and trying to get better. He wants to be better. He wants to be at the top of the mountain. I think he's hungry for it. And I think he's going to come this weekend. I think he's going to take the top crown. And he's going to say, and now you just add another name into the conversation for the games next year of people say, oh, yeah, Dallin can win. Dallin can win. Dallin won Rogue.
Yeah, he hasn't won a competition, of this caliber since aging up to the, out of the teenage division where he's shown that he could win there. And I do think that, there's a difference between being close and winning. And if he does that this weekend, then absolutely he immediately becomes a threat to win pretty much, maybe not like a Wadapalooza, but a semifinal games Rogue on for a couple of years going forward if he's in the field. Jason, what's the big storyline for you this weekend?
For me, it's I'm going back to Adler again. I think this is exciting that we've got I know some are going to only count 2, but we've got 3 CrossFit Games champions competing in the field. We went for years. We had Rich, we had that little Ben Smith blip, and then we had Fraser for years, and you just didn't get, like, games champions didn't get beaten, right? Then we had Medeiros, and it was kind of like, but he won because Fraser was gone, and then he won a second time, and we're like, oh, actually maybe this guy, and then he lost. But Adler won, and there was all this debate around, Roman was injured, did it really count? then he didn't compete. This year, James has won, and clearly the chat has decided he is not of the same caliber. So I would like to see Adler come in, win this, just to sort of, solidify a little bit. Look, I am as good as maybe some people think I am. And then this is sort of maybe the start of him being the one to beat. When he's turning up a competition, or you should be, as you said, he doesn't turn up at as many competitions as others. So if he's there, he's the man to beat. That's what I want to see, like the start of that, if that makes sense.
Patrick, you can't pick down, you can't pick Adler. What's the biggest storyline for you this weekend? Doesn't have to be an athlete.
The changing of the guard. We have a lot of athletes here, like the Noah Olsons, the BKG. Fikowski already announced his retirement. Vellner. Who else I'm missing in there? Kwant. We have Chandler. We have these athletes who've been around for near the top of the sport for like 5-6 years, and now we're seeing athletes like Pepper, Sprague, even Hopper. Hopper's still, I consider part of the new guard. They're all kind of coming in now, and I think what this is what you might see at the end of this competition is a changing of that guard. Who knows? There might be some athletes after the end of this competition announcing their retirement, maybe from individual or stepping back from the CrossFit season, maybe just handpicking certain events. I'm just assuming that, not just speculating as people would say. But I think that's a storyline I'm looking out for. I mean, yeah.
Curious, where do you see Medeiros in that? Do you view him a part of the new guard still?
No, he's only 25.
Yeah. So part of the new guard.
Yeah. He's part of. I think he was that shift from that new guard, because you had Matt, and it's almost like in wrestling we have these things called WWE wrestling. Do you have this thing called transitional champions? I don't think Medeiros is a transitional champion, but he kind of like brought on that new like division. Adler was kind of a little bit late. I know he's kind of older, but he was kind of a late bloomer. But Adler probably isn't going anywhere for the next. I think Adler's got another 3, 4, 5 years left, because he doesn't have as much mileage as some of these other athletes.
Because he doesn't have a kid.
He does. Yeah,
I know you saw this comment, Jason.
Yeah.
He's like he's made of stone. Like BKG just doesn't age. He's porcelain. He's just sort of. I think it's because they keep him cold all the time.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these team athletes. We brought it up. Who was it that we talked to that essentially been doing CrossFit since they're like 12 years old? But a lot of these young teenage athletes, like Medeiros has been doing it for a long time. Hopper's kind of an outlier because he found CrossFit while he was playing football. He found a little bit late. But next gen, which documentary? The new one that's coming out?
The one that'll be released in 2 years' time.
Ironically, Fit, I'd love a PB&J podium. Anyone think that that's a possibility, that we get 3 Canadians on the podium?
Cool. Fikowski's not podium.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, he's doubled down at the end, doesn't he?
Oh yeah. Just going back on that comment of a changing of the guard, I think you're going to see 6 or 7 of these athletes that this might be their last Rogue. I don't think you're going to see Noah again. I don't think you're going to see BKG again. You're not going to see Sam again. Like you're not going to see Fikowski again. There's already 4 or 5 athletes that you're not going to see competing at Rogue again, I think. So there's going to be a whole heap of new athletes that just come through. Oh, capitals too. Yes. I've upset someone. That was the goal.
Well, to me, I like the question. I think you guys all did a great job with it, because it's such a crazy field. But the person that I'm really looking at this weekend is Justin Medeiros. I kind of hinted at it a couple times that he has not lost at Rogue, and obviously that was during the period of time where he was winning the CrossFit Games as well. And there's been this question mark around whether he can get back into that conversation. He was just, he spoke about it at the games where he wasn't able to tap into his competitive self. He was questioning whether he should even be doing it. And I think that I'm hopeful that we'll get to see what I believe is a return to relevancy. Not to say that he's not relevant, but meaning that when he signs up for a competition or he shows up at a competition, that it's hard to not pick him into a podium spot, despite all of the other great athletes in the field. I have him sitting there on 4th because, like you guys, I am a believer that Dallin Pepper is the real deal. I actually said it 2 years ago at the games. He strikes me as the type of guy that's a final heat at the CrossFit Games type of athlete, Dallin Pepper, where if you don't see him in the final heat, you're scratching your head more than if you do. I think Justin Medeiros is the same thing. I'm expecting him to not necessarily win events, but to have a very consistent showing with some top finishes and be in the hunt for the podium the entire weekend. And I kind of hope that that's the case, because I think that the last 2 years, for a variety of different reasons, haven't allowed him to show his top class. Patrick?
I think if Justin finishes top 3, that's a great result for him. Like, I think if Justin manages the top 3, that's an excellent result. And he can't be unhappy about that, because he would have had some great performances, and he's probably just been beaten by 2 guys that are slightly better than what he is and have that home run ability more than he does. I saw this. These guys need to get out more. Prison Break's 20 years old.
Yeah.
No, I just want you guys. What sticks out in this?
There was nothing to me surprising about Ricky Garard watching
Jeff Adler.
No, I was looking more at Gabby.
That'll lose a guy in 10 days. That'll lose a guy in one CrossFit Games event. You're trying to start fights, PC. You're trying to start fights.
Well, I want to say this about Rogue in general. I mean, we hear this all the time from critics in the space, and I do think that the athletes in general have gotten better at that. They want to know about them as people and not just as competitors, and that there's always this conversation about the Road to the Games series, where the games media crew would travel to people's homes and learn about their family life, their childhood, whatever, and we'd get to know the athletes this way. I think Rogue has done a really good and rather clever job of creating little touch points for a lot of the athletes there in the last 2 or 3 days, so that people can tap into the personal side in addition to the athlete side.
Rogue check-in looks unreal. Like, it looks like it would be 10 times better than, like, last year. What do they get? Baseball bats. They got boots. They get cowboy hats. They get kilts. Like, they have the best experience at check-in, and that's why everyone wants to go. It's not just for the obviously you want to do well in the competition, but you also want to have that experience that you just don't get at another competition. That's why Rogue is Rogue.
Yeah, in fact, when Brian, when you asked PC the question and then you said it doesn't have to be about an athlete, then I was like, oh man, I should have just answered then about the event. I am just so interested to see how taking an established event like Rogue and then putting it in Europe, like, how does that work? I can't wait to see we see the European fans turning up in droves when we have semifinals and things like that. And now we're adding all the people that are coming internationally because of the names on the field and because it's an excuse to travel to Scotland for the first time and see their favorites. And I just think, like, this is a great experiment, because if it works, and it looks like it's working, what does that mean for the future? Like, what other events could we see popping up in different parts of the world, bringing the athletes to the people? I think this is, a really important event for more than just an execution of fitness.
Yeah, I mean, the sport's massive outside the US. I think, like, you look at, I've been to the Torium Pro the last 4 or 5 years, and it's sold out Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's packed. You bring, like you said, Jason, you bring these athletes to a different country, people are going to show out. They don't get to see the Jason Hoppers. They don't get to see the Jeffrey Adlers. They don't get to see all the American guys compete, if ever. So why wouldn't you go? Why wouldn't you go and watch it? I'm assuming it's sold out. If it's not sold out, it'll be very close too. It's going to be a wild atmosphere there. So much more wild than you saw in Texas, where the stadium looked empty. Like, no one really went to that event whenever it was there. So taking it outside the country is a massive, massive thing, I think.
Yeah, I also think we're going to see some carryover from tier SoCal too. We kind of saw this in the men's division, Brian, last year at tier, or not tier, at Rogue, because we would talk to the guys, And they're like, yeah, it's just like a locker room, because they literally did have them in a baseball locker room. It's like, it was cool. We sit there and was joking with each other before we're going out. And it's like but on the women's side, everyone was just quiet. But I think you're not seeing that, because what you saw at Tier SoCal is you saw men and women, and they created friendships that weekend. I mean, you saw someone like Guy is such a likable person that if you're someone that like doesn't want to talk to Guy, he's going to come up to you and talk to you. He's going to make you his friend. And I think what you're going to see a lot of that carry over. You're going to see obviously Jason and Sprague and Dallin kind of talking smack. You're going to see Brent and Vellner rolling their eyes. I mean, I hope they capture all of that. And I think what they're doing now is you're having this kind of almost back when Rich, Dan, and Josh, they were really close knit. We knew they were, but we never saw it that much on the field of play. I think we're going to see a lot of that on the field of play. At least I hope we do. What we saw from Tia, yeah, we're going to see the competitive Tia, but we're also going to see a different side of Tia where I could definitely see her. And Craig, you might have, we talked about this when we had Georgia Pryor on, where she's going to be out on the field encouraging other athletes. It might not be Laura or someone that's right behind her, but she'll be out there encouraging her, because we saw a different side of her. And I think this is, what they're doing is Rogue is seeing what Noble did when Noble did that locker room, and they rogued it. They leveled it up like Rogue always does. They find something really cool. If it works, they're going to level it up and make it better. And it's unfortunate that CrossFit Games doesn't really fall in line with that. And that's ultimately what has hurt the CrossFit Games. And that's why, again, you have athletes that are wanting to come to Rogue, because it's an experience unlike any other, whether it's in Texas, in Columbus, Ohio, online, or if it's in Scotland. Everyone wants to be a part of it. And I'm really excited to witness this. And I hope everyone in Scotland is excited about this. Everyone on your island, Jason, is excited about it.
Yeah, they are.
Sure. Like
I asked around.
They're
all very
those
excited.
fans getting to see Tia they're gonna realize how good Tia is when you watch her in person. You watch her at the games and you watch her live. It's like watching. She is the greatest of all time. You watch her when she's warming up. The focus of Tia when she warms up, she's not talking to anyone. And you watch her when she finishes an event. Even last year when she came, she won the event, and then I remember Laura coming over the line in the first event. It was a little bit of like, yeah, I'm here. Like, just to remind you, I'm here. And this year it's going to be even bigger than that. She's going to go, I'm here, and I'm going to show you what I do, and this is why I'm the champ. I missed that show.
Well, that was, I think, a pretty thorough review of an extremely talented field. It's really fun to talk about these guys because they're all so well accomplished. They all work really, really hard just to have this opportunity. But I think it's going to be 10 times more exciting to watch them compete this weekend. There were a lot of positive feedback on the programming when that came out a couple of days ago. And the stadium is state of the art. The field looks incredible. The athletes are great. Everything that these guys are saying is right. It's going to be a packed house. It's going to have a feeling that these athletes have really only experienced either at an international semifinal or at the games before. There's a lot on the line for some of them in terms of pride, reputation, upholding a standard. Also, there's big money on the line. There's still going to be some nuance to the workouts that will be released. So if you haven't made plans to watch, what's going to be going on this weekend, and you're a fan of the sport, I'm not sure, what you're doing. This is going to be probably the most special viewing opportunity that we have this year. And, if you guys are going to be there, Jason's going to be on site. Patrick and I will be getting in tomorrow. We'd love to say hi to you guys and hang out. It's always fun to meet some of you who are there. And otherwise, tune in online if you want to watch the special stream that they have. It's called the VIP stream or the extra stream that you can pay a little bit extra to watch. They provide that as well. That has a little bit more lighthearted nature to it than the more analytical commentary that you usually get. So there's multiple ways to interact with it virtually as well. Final thoughts, Jason, before you go and before you head out to Scotland tomorrow.
Yeah, excited to meet you in person, Brian. That's probably what it is. So we've talked about, getting to finally see all these athletes, and you as well, PC. Actually, yeah. I mean, after I found out I was at a bottom of the barrel pick to come on the show, yeah.
Brad, bottom of the barrel. I'm bottom. I'll take the bottom spot, man.
No, yeah. Overall, really excited. I think it's going to be. Somebody mentioned also, like, I mean, we haven't talked about it at all, but I'm also excited to see the strongman, strong woman competition. It was interesting to learn that, like, we talk about the payout for Rogue for the CrossFit athletes, but the fact that they're paying the women the same as the men in the strongman, which is, common in CrossFit, not common in strongman. So, again, Rogue are kind of leading the way in that, which is really exciting. And I've spoken with some of the strong women, and they're super excited to be able to, like, perform on that stage and get paid as much as the guys. So I think, as always, Rogue are kind of going above and beyond with what they're doing. So I'm really excited to, I've never been to the Rogue Invitational before. So for me, it's going to be my first time there. I'm really excited.
Craig, first time on the show, first time on a show like this. How was it for you?
Good times, good fun. It's fun. Like, you come on here and, like, I guess at the end of the day, no one, like anything, no one knows where anyone's going to finish. You can only put your picks up and then try to explain where you think they land. And as I said, I'm a CrossFit fan. I'm not an analyst. I don't dive deep into events and who does well in certain things. I tend to pick based off my heart, and we'll see how we go. It'd be interesting to do a follow-up show and see how close we are and how right we are, or how completely wrong we are, and everyone gets to tell me that Fikowski finishes fourth and nothing.
I saw this comment, and I think people already know how short I am. I think it comes across through the screen, so that's fine.
Patrick.
Who's Haggis? Is she hot?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Sorry.
That is out of character for you.
It's midnight. Well, it's like 1 o'clock where Jason's at, but yeah.
No, it's not.
No, it's Brian's ahead of me.
Yeah, I forgot the time zone. Yeah, it's stupid.
Every time we talk about it, he says that you're 1 hour ahead of us. I'm like, no, he's 1 hour behind.
I don't know. Look at the time zones. Hey, if you guys haven't, please give our guests here. Sorry, Melanie. I know.
Melanie liked it. CJ did not.
I know. Sorry, CJ. Oh. But anyways, make sure you give. You see being on PC. Look at it. See, everyone has this idea of who I am. I'm edgy. I'm emo. But anyways, yeah, please give our guests here a follow. They do a lot of great work. Craig, explain what Blueprint Health and Fitness is. I mean, obviously, what exactly?
I'm a private coaching studio, so most of my clients are corporates. They sit anywhere from 40 to 55 years old. It's basic strength and conditioning. None of my clients do CrossFit. For me, I found CrossFit in 2018. One of my mates, Moses, who owns CrossFit EXF, who's been to the games a couple of times. We've been mates for a long time. What was that? Sorry?
Isn't it Moses Patello or something like that?
Moses Patello, yeah. So he owns CrossFit EXF, which is in Logan, about 20 to 25 minutes from where I am. And we'd been mates for a long time. And in 2018, I went down and did CrossFit for the first time and gradually fell in love with the sport. So my business and what I do has absolutely nothing to do with CrossFit. I'm here as a fan. I follow the sport as a fan. It's purely, I watch as many podcasts as I can. I watch Saban. I watch you guys. I watch Brian Spin. I pay attention on Instagram. That's where my level of expertise comes from. And yeah, that's me.
Do you do nutrition coaching, online nutrition coaching, or anything like that?
No, it's more just for my clients. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I will say I always do look forward to your comments. I almost put that in the description. It's like you might know him from the comments section because you usually have something smart or something. I don't know. There's a lot of things you put up there that I'm like kind of disagree with, but I'm like, yeah, I get where you're coming at though. But it's great.
Oh, boys, I've always been quite strong in my opinions in terms of like where I think they fall, and I think that's where Brian and I have connected, is that I will say what I think, and if I'm happy to be proven wrong. Again, I'm coming at this as where a lot of people come from. They're fans of the sport, and they have an opinion on based off how they feel and what they see emotionally and what they watch. It's not, most of us don't, 99.9 of us don't come from a Brian or a John Young, or they don't come at it with facts. They come at it with emotion. They come at it with what they see. And I feel like I'm just a fan of the sport, and that's where we are. That's how I got here.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate having you on. Jason,
Thanks
what
for
do you
having
got going on? Why should people follow you?
That's a great question. So
and why does Craig have more followers than you?
I know, yeah. Well,
not paid for either.
Why should people? So I talk about stuff going on in the world of CrossFit, I suppose, but I try to just give you the facts and not my opinion, and let you form your own opinion. That tends to be my MO if it's talking about any kind of news that's coming up. And then with the show that I do, the Plate Stack Chat one, that's, Brian was saying about trying to get to know the athletes more as people than just beyond them being an athlete. So I guess that's sort of the point of that show. It's kind of just to talk about them in general, and not, what's your training like? What are you doing here? But more, what are they doing just in daily life? How are they enjoying life? And I don't know. What I've got coming out, I'm going to be at Rogue. There'll be loads of content coming out about Rogue. Then I'll probably be at FitFest, and then potentially I'll be heading to Budapest for the International Functional Fitness Federation World Championships as well. So haven't told anyone that yet, but I've booked the hotel, so I'll probably be there.
Well, Jason, looks like we're going to be spending a lot of time together. Hope you, because I think those are all three places that I'm going to as well.
Yeah. Well, somebody messaged me and they said, what's Coffee Pods and Wad's name? And I was like, it's Peter. And they was like, oh, what's his surname? I was like, White. I was like, oh, okay. So it's not PC then. I was like, no, that's Patrick Clark. And that was about FitFest. So I was like, oh, I think he's going to be there. So
yeah, I'm not really big in Europe yet. Trying. So definitely.
Hey, I'm not big in Europe, and I have been here all my life. So.
Well, yeah, I really greatly enjoy your Plate Stack chats. Are awesome. I love how you grab like athletes, and you actually, like, I don't know, facilitate crosstalk between the athletes. And I really like that, how you do that. You do a good job of that, especially when you have athletes that are from different backgrounds and different points in their career. I really enjoyed how you do that.
Yeah, I stole that idea from another more famous TV chat show. But the idea is that athletes aren't going to try and impress me. They're not going to try and impress people listening, but they will probably try and impress each other. And so they're more likely to share interesting things between themselves than they are necessarily with me. So that's sort of the idea there.
Yeah. So
you'll have to come on, PC. You've not been on yet. I'm sorry. Brian's been on, but you've not been on.
I can't follow I'm not going to follow what Brian did. So
yeah.
Because the last thing I want is Hiller to do a 45-minute video on one thing I said. So
that he releases at midnight, and so I have to stay up and watch it. Yeah.
Give these guys a follow. Jason also has a YouTube channel. Jason, who are you picking to win Grid League?
Oh,
come on.
Yeah.
I come to you for all my Grid League stuff. So.
Probably the Aces, I guess.
Good pick.
Yeah.
Brian's a wild.
I've got a connection with the Wild, but I think
I know you have.
Paper.
Yeah, they talked about that. I don't know if they mentioned it on the show or after. They were talking about when you were there, at their like training day thing, and there was a good time apparently. Good time.
It was. I tried to race one of the girls in the burpees, and it was
they're insane. Yeah.
Well, it's really cool because I think you kind of, between you and then we did something. Then obviously the Buttery Bros did something just here recently, and then now John Young he apparently made the Houston team. So it looks like Grid League is getting a little bit more eyes on. So we're kind of interested to see how the season ends and see what next year brings, because they're adding Houston and another team to give them 10 total teams.
Yeah.
So, but Brian, anything else?
No, thank you guys for being a part of the show. Jason, I guess we'll see you tomorrow. And Craig, man, appreciate all the support and comments. Australia's got a huge, and I should say the Oceanic region has a huge CrossFit community. I still haven't found a way to get out there, but I would really love to do that. And I think that, it'd be cool to have another voice from that region of the world. So might give you another shout one of these days.
I don't know.
Thank you very much.
We have to see if the channels let them.
Nah, Fikowski will be retired by then. It's all good.
Yeah, just as long as you don't bag on.
Right. Yeah. You can roast me and send me DMs. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I do prefer your island.
Just be aware if CrossFit sends you a DM, he's trying to impress you with something.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Sounds good.
You must have saw my shirt.
All right, we're gonna log it off just over 2 hours, and 3 of us will be in Scotland tomorrow. Look for all the content Jason will be putting out. Thank you, HGR. Thank you, Strike Movement, for all the support. And I'm stealing your line this time, PC. Until next time, guys, be friendly, our friends.
Yeah, I love it.